with our clerk to see if we have a quorum.
Yes, Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll get started. This is the February 12th Executive Committee meeting for Sandag, and it's the first meeting in 2021. I want to welcome those who are new. So we have Mayor Vasquez, Mayor Hall, and Mayor Sotelo-Solis. And let's get started with the approval of the meeting minutes for January 8th. So do we have any public comments on item number 1, Francesca?
No, Chair, I don't see any hands.
Okay, I will entertain a motion. Do we have any board members who would like to make a motion?
Hi, Mayor Raquel Vasquez. I motion that we approve the minutes of January 8th, 2021.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. Do we have a second? I'm going to go ahead and second it. So let's go ahead and have a roll call vote, please, Francesca.
Thank you, Chair. For the city of, I believe the city of San Diego is absent unless Mayor Gloria hopped on. Okay, City of San Diego is absent. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Lawson Reamer.
Aye.
Thank you. For East County, Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Chair Blakespear.
Yes.
Thank you. North County Inland is absent. And for South County, Mayor Salas.
I do see also Mayor Gloria is here.
Oh, great. I'll come back to Mayor Gloria. Mayor Salas, are you able to state your vote for the record? Okay, then I'll go back for City of San Diego. Mayor Gloria, can you state your vote for the record on the minutes?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Francesca, we also have Mayor Voss.
Oh, great.
Jeez.
Okay, Mayor Voss, thank you, for North County Inland. And South County, Mayor Salas, will give you one more opportunity if you're able to provide your vote. You're self-muted at the moment.
Aye.
Thank you
Aye.
very much. And that does pass unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, that was a little rocky start, but I'm glad we got through it. So do we have any member comments? I don't see any. How about public comments? Francesca?
No, Chair, I don't see any hands. Thank you.
Okay, great. We're on to item number 3, Executive Director's Report. We'll turn it over to Hassan.
Thank you, Chair Blakespear, Vice Chair Mayor Gloria, members, good morning. A couple of things. On Monday, Chair Blakespear joined the North County Transit District Chair Tony Krantz and U.S. Congressman Mike Levin to celebrate the arrival of the new state-of-the-art Siemens locomotives and several newly renovated coaster passenger cars. These updated train set were funded $58.8 million by Sandag, also by SBN and other grants. We're glad that our partner is using these new locomotives, and I want to thank Chair Blakespear for attending in our behalf. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of speaking at the Baja California 2021 Border Master Plan Policy Advisory Committee and Technical Working Group. I'm happy to report the completion of the Border Master Plan. I want to thank my team who did an amazing job in putting forth a plan full of innovation. I want to thank the Director of Caltrans, Tox Omashikan, the Secretary of Transportation in Baja California, Karen Botswaith, the Undersecretary of Infrastructure and Urban Development for the State of Baja California, Jorge Hiralez, Consul General Ambassador Carlos Gonzalez, Mark Paza, the Executive Director of Imperial County Transportation Commission. Yesterday, I think there were unanimous and universal support for us moving forward on Otay Mesa 2. As you know, we put forth September 24th to be the time when we're going to open these facilities for a great economic future for both regions. Yesterday also, the National Association of Regional Council was meeting in DC. It's a national organization. I joined SANDAG Director of Mobility and Innovation, Antoinette Mayer, and we talk about digital divide. If you recall last meeting, you passed a resolution supporting digital divide. And simply to say, this is such an important issue that almost 40% of San Diegans don't have the adequate bandwidth or the adequate Wi-Fi, and even when they do, it's unaffordable. So we felt very strongly that SANDAG should be involved in this, and we're partnering with SCAG. We're partnering with the Department of Transportation in Sacramento, and you heard last time from former Secretary of Transportation, Sunny McPeak, who's trying to get us funding. Antoinette spoke to the national audience. He obviously, as always, hit it out of the park. They're actually, SANDAG becomes the envy of the country by having such ability to expand their reach. The same meeting, we also were invited to talk about the 5 big moves. I joined Colleen Clemenson and Ray Major, talking to the national audience, and again, amazing start to national trend of how we do planning in this region. Update on affordable housing and sustainable communities grant. If you recall, there is such a grant from in Sacramento. We have not gotten any money last year. We have 0. And the reason for that is really the criteria. But last week, we submitted a comment letter applauding the Strategic Growth Council and Sustainable Community Grant Program draft guideline to include a geographic distribution, which means we can at least have 1 in San Diego. And a lot of work went into this, but I want to thank State Senate appointee to the council, Nicole Capret. She worked tirelessly to make sure we have that. Her and I spoke at the last board meeting, and Nicole, thank you. We finally gonna get an opportunity for this region to get some funding. On the Mid-Coast, moving on schedule to open late this year. The next week, you see San Diego will celebrate the lighting of university sign that span the Gilman Bridge. And the Gilman Bridge, as you know, was funded collaboratively with the university and SANDAG. An important update on Shared Street update, just a reminder that SANDAG is continuing the Shared Street pilot program in recognition of National Bike Month in May with an additional $60,000 in grant funds. This is Shared Street 2.0. Those who are interested, each jurisdiction can apply for a $5,000 grant. $1,000 on top of that will go for research that we're doing with UCSD. This is allow cities, jurisdiction to have closures, have fun activities for their communities. So please apply and don't miss the deadline. The request for application is available at sandag.org/sharedstreet. Application must be received by March 5th, and project must be implemented between May 1st and June 27th. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Hassan. It was all interesting information. Thank you for sharing that. Item number 4 is on consent. So we will move to item number 5, which is review of draft agendas. Victoria?
Good morning. So we'll go over the 2 draft board agendas for February 26th and for March 12th. The February 26th agenda is quite long, so bear with me. First three items are your standard public comments, policy advisory committee chairs reports, and the executive director's report. On your consent file, you have approval of the meeting minutes, followed by policy advisory committee actions. Item number 6 is the waiver for review of time extension for the SANDAG grant programs. We'll be looking for an approve. Item number 7 is the regional early action plan funds for the RENA, Regional Housing Incentive Program. I'm sorry. Item number 8 is the Transnet Regional Transportation Congestion Improvement Program fee adjustment. Ray Major and Ariana will be looking for an approve. Item number 9 is the Executive Director Delegated Actions, followed by items number 10 and 11, the meetings and events attended on behalf of SANDAG, followed by the quarterly reports on SANDAG capital programs. Item number 12 is the quarterly finance report for the financial markets through December 2020. That brings us to the reports. Item number 13 is for information, and it'll be an update on the SANDAG DBE program, followed by item number 14, which Rachel will bring forth, the 2020 Equal Opportunity Program Annual Report. Item number 15, Ray Major will be providing a informational report on the regional economic update. Item number 16 is a Transnet and transit related revenues report that's coming up from the Transportation Committee, which we'll be looking for and approve. Item number 7 is the quarterly 2021 program budget update and proposed budget amendment. So this will be coming from Andre. Item number 18 is the 2021 RTIP program. We're looking for an adopt. Item number 19 is the 2021 LEDGE program, which you'll hear next. And that concludes the February 26th Board of Directors agenda. Would you like me to go on to 5B for March 12th?
Yes, please.
Thank you. For the March 12th Board of Directors agenda, we have your first standard items, the public comments, policy advisory committee chairs reports, and the executive director's report, all for information. Under consent, we have approval of the meeting minutes, followed by the executive director delegated actions. Under your reports, we have the release of debt service reserve funds for the 2008 Series A bonds. So the board will be asked to release the debt service funds from the 2008 bond series, followed by another report from Andre and the finance team on the commercial paper program. We'll be looking for an approve. Item number 8 is an update on the RTP, pricing and financing, and we'll be having a robust discussion about that, followed by your last item, which will be the South Bay Expressway SR 125 overview for information. That concludes the March 12th Board of Agendas report.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a lot to cover. I'm looking for a motion to approve on those items.
So moved.
Second.
Chair, sorry, if we could take just a moment for public comments on that item before we take the vote.
Oh, yes, do we have a public comment on that? Let's call the public comment.
I don't see any hands, just wanted to give the opportunity.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. So we have a motion from Mayor Gloria, and I wasn't clear on the second.
Second, Celis.
Okay, great, let's go ahead and vote, Francesca.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Mayor Gloria.
Aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Lawson Reamer.
Aye.
Thank you. For East County, Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Chair Blakespear.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Thank you. And for South County, Mayor Salas.
Aye.
Thank you. And that does pass unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So now we have item number 6, which is review of proposed amendments to our bylaws and board policies to reinstate the second vice chair position. And I'll call on Amber Lynn for this report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning.
Sorry, lots going on. Oops, sorry.
Can you hear me fine?
We can, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So good morning, I'm Amber Lynn Deaton, and I'm your Deputy General Counsel, and I'm here today to discuss proposed amendments to the SANDAG bylaws and board policy. At its January 22nd meeting, the board directed staff to prepare proposed amendments that would reestablish the second vice chair position. At a prior meeting, staff also was requested to propose modifications to the procedures for the election of board officers. The language implementing these proposed amendments is reflected in red line in the attachment to your report, which begins at page 16 of your agenda packet. In order to reestablish the second vice chair position, the proposed amendments restore language that was added by the board in 2015 and subsequently removed by the board in 2017. For reference, the current bylaws allow the PAC chairs to perform the role of chair in the absence of both the chair and the vice chair. The proposed amendments would allow the second vice chair to perform that function instead and would establish the second vice chair as a voting member of the executive committee. Additional amendments to the bylaws are proposed to move the officer election cycle to January following an even numbered election year. Those proposed amendments begin at page 22 of your agenda packet. The current bylaws provide for elections to be held in or around December following an election, effectively allowing an outgoing board to select the officers for the next term. The proposed changes would significantly streamline the election procedures in order to allow for elections to take place at the first meeting in January following an election, thereby allowing the newly constituted board to select its officers. The proposed amendments to the bylaws eliminate the application and nominating committee process. All nominations would come from the floor on the day of the election, thereby expediting the seating of the new officers. This concludes a brief summary of the proposed amendments relating to the reestablishment of the second vice chair and the election schedule. I'll be coming back to you at your next meeting to present the annual updates to the bylaws and board policies that relate to the agency's day-to-day operation. So as for next steps, Article 9 of the bylaws states that prior to be taken to the Board of Directors for approval, any proposed amendments should be taken to the Executive Committee preliminarily for review and then brought to the Executive Committee at a subsequent meeting for a recommendation for approval to the board. Advisory, not mandatory, and the Executive Committee may forward any recommendation directly to the board for consideration. This item has also been placed on the agenda for the board to consider at its meeting later this morning. Any recommendations that come from today's Executive Committee meeting will be conveyed to the board at that time. Therefore, the Executive Committee is asked to recommend that the Board of Directors approve the proposed amendments to the bylaws and board policies that are related to reinstating the second vice chair position and the board leadership election schedule. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Amberlynn. If you want to comment on this, please put your hand up. I see Mayor Gloria has his hand up. Go ahead.
Chair, actually, I didn't have any comments, and I'm happy to offer a motion whenever appropriate.
Okay, I think,
Is it?
Let's see if we have public comment on this. Do we have public comment?
No, Chair, I don't see any hands from the public.
Okay, then this is a great time for that motion.
Just trying to be expeditious this morning, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Deaton, for the presentation and to staff's quick work to turn this around. I definitely appreciate that. I'd like to make a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the bylaw changes. I encourage my colleagues' support.
Do we have
I
a
will
second?
second that, Mayor Salas. Yes, Mayor Salas, second.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and vote.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Mayor Gloria.
Aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Lawson Reamer.
Aye.
Thank you. For East County, Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Chair Blakespear.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Voss.
No.
Thank you. For South County, Mayor Salas.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And that does pass with 5 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, thank you very much. So that brings us to item number 7, which is the preliminary fiscal year 2022 program budget and strategic planning framework. Ray, I believe you are kicking this one off.
Yes, the other Ray.
Yep. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the Executive Committee. I'm Ray Trainer. I'm your Chief Planning and Innovation Officer. And before we get started, I'd actually just like to invite you to think for a moment about your leadership and a couple of questions for you just to ponder as we kind of step into today's quick conversation. But I wanted to have you think about your role as leaders in your communities, the organizations that you serve. How have you inspired change? How have you helped to maybe drive change forward? And maybe even more importantly, how have you helped to sustain the changes that you have tried to inspire? You know, it's often said organizations either grow or they die, that organizations must change, they must continue to evolve and to be aligned to meet the needs of their environment, or they cease to be relevant. I think as regional leaders, you can attest to this. I think you've been around long enough to be able to see that important connection when an organization is aligned and you can see the connection to its ability to sustain its performance. When an organization is aligned, there's a shared understanding of purpose, of the strategies, of the goals that will make that organization successful. And when there's organizational alignment, it's really energizing for the people that are a part of that organization. And it really enables them to work better together and to achieve success. And when we talk about alignment, what I'm really talking about is the levers of change. And these are things like organizational structure, culture, processes, even the use of technology. And it's the process of aligning all of these components with the mission and the vision and the priorities of the organization. So this morning, I'm joined by your Chief Economist, Ray Major, and your Chief Financial Officer, Andre Dujon. And we want to just step through a few of the highlights of the journey that we've been on as an organization in our quest to be more aligned to meet the changing needs of our region. I'm going to start with a little bit of context as to what led us here. We're going to talk about the involvement that we've had with members of the board, the involvement that we've had with a number of stakeholders, and the work that we've done with our colleagues, the employees of Sandag, and how all of these voices have really helped to inform the process of the strategic planning, which is really what we're here to talk about along with the fiscal year 22 budget. We also want to call attention to the draft mission and vision statements. And these are really central to everything that we're doing here. And then finally, we're going to talk just a little bit about the budget environment for our coming fiscal year. That's, I think, for many of us, really top of mind, and how the fiscal year 22 annual program budget is being shaped and aligned by this strategic planning work. And that really is what we believe going to be critical for us to drive the alignment and to drive forward with our mission and vision. Ray, if you could get us on slide 2, that's the picture with the pathway. There you go, thanks. So back in 2018, the board hired Hassan to bring changes to Sandag and to the San Diego region. And over these last 2 years, we've been on a journey. And that journey has really been, how do we become more effective as an organization? How do we become bolder in our thinking? How do we better invest in our future? And how do we as an organization become more agile in the way we work? And it's all within the context of Hassan's vision that we're truly a world-class organization that's equipped to meet the needs of the people of the San Diego region. Next slide. In 2019, we embarked on a comprehensive assessment. Many of you were a part of that. We had a consultant team called Performance Works, and they conducted something like a 360 evaluation, if you will. And there were many voices involved. We interviewed board members at the time, we interviewed stakeholders, and this occurred in several ways. The consultants led a number of these conversations, and what they were doing was really trying to identify areas of improvement. And this really focused on things like our relationship, our communication between the board and staff, as well as opportunities on how we can really operate at the forefront of change and innovation that's taking place. And we can see it all around us. I mean, what's happening in the areas of data-driven planning, the myriad of new mobility services that have been really underpinned by advances in technology. And what this organizational assessment project did is it really helped us to take an examination. And it made a number of recommendations about our structure. I talked about those levers of change, the structure, our culture, our processes, all with an eye of optimizing our performance as an organization. And as a part of that work on that assessment, we developed a draft mission and a vision statement for Sandag. In fact, some of you may recall, we had actually planned to present this work back in March at the retreat. And at the same time, that week, the stay-at-home orders went into effect. So here we are, nearly 11 months later, and this combination of the pandemic, certainly the economic crisis that we've been facing, the calls for racial justice that have been continuing to grow throughout the summer and into the fall, and our interest in helping to establish a much more comprehensive view around equity has really provided our team with an opportunity to take a fresh look at many aspects of our organization and ourselves. Next slide. So today I want to just introduce you to the framework that we're using to bring this alignment that I was mentioning, the alignment of our teams, the processes, all the resources. And the framework is really helping us as an organization to focus on the critically important transformational activities along with a set of priorities. And the framework has been developed around the why. That's really top of mind. Why Sandag's work is so critical to our region. The framework also talks about the how, how we carry out our work, and it lays out a roadmap for the what we're going to focus on as a group to deliver all the programs, the projects, and the services, and at the same time, adapting to meet these needs that are changing, as I mentioned. So I'd like to ask Ray Major, your chief economist, to introduce you to the draft mission and vision statements. And Ray, could you take care?
Thank you. In its simplest format, a strategic planning framework, it really exists to help us align all of our resources of the agency with the why, the what, and the how that Ray was describing. And as you know, we've undergone a tremendous amount of change in the last couple of years. We lost an executive director who had been here for a long time, and then Hassan came on board and took the helm and moved the agency in a completely different direction. And all of the people within the agency really needed to change the work that they were doing and how we were interacting with each other in order to meet the new goals of the agency. And we see a shift in the board with this last election again, and that's going to again change the direction that the agency goes and the projects we work on, the initiatives, et cetera. And so by having a strategic planning framework like this, what it does is it gives us as an agency, and it gives the managers tools by which we can adjust to the changes that come down our way, so we can be much more nimble as we try to implement the initiatives that are on the table. And so this graphic kind of just outlines what that looks like and how it's tied together. And we'll be socializing this with the entire agency at some point, and really having each department align their initiatives with the agency initiatives and their strategies with the agency strategies, so that we're all pulling in the same direction. On the left-hand side, you see how we get the work done. Those are our guiding principles, our value in our actions. And it's our people, it's our processes, and it's our technology. And on the what side, you see the initiatives. And those are those big things we hear about, whether it's the Mid-Coast project or the bluff stabilization, for instance. These are big initiatives that in many cases require strategies to implement. So I worked in private industry for 25 years before coming to Sandag, and almost every one of the Fortune 500 companies that I worked with had a vision and mission. And what it allows people to do within the organization is really focus and understand what their purpose is. So a vision is supposed to be this inspirational and aspirational challenge to staff and really kind of bind us with a common goal. And so the draft vision that we've been working on for the last couple of months is pursuing a brighter future for all. And part of the reason we think that this really is the vision is think about the type of things that Sandag does. We do things like beach sand replacement. We combat GHG. We try to address social equity issues. We build bikeways. We're working on a third border crossing. I mean, all of these efforts, when brought to fruition, bring a brighter future to the region. And so pursuing a brighter future for all is the draft vision that we are proposing. And in terms of a mission, the mission really describes the reason for our existence as an agency. And the draft mission reads that we are the regional agency that connects people, places, and innovative ideas by implementing solutions with our unique and diverse communities. So first of all, we are a regional agency, and I think that makes us unique. Sandag is unique in the sense that we don't look at individual issues that would happen in one jurisdiction, but we're looking out for the betterment of the entire region. And as our board of directors, you represent 3.4 million people. It includes, also the board includes representatives from tribal nations, the port, and others. And all of these are advocating for the people and the places within their communities. And we discuss innovative ideas at these board meetings. Staff brings to you proposals, things like a plan for electric vehicle charging, or stabilizing the Del Mar Bluffs, or a safety plan for 67. And you discuss those things, and then you vote on what we're supposed to do. And then what also makes us unique as a organization is that we don't just talk about those ideas. Sandag is charged with implementing many of these solutions, and we implement those for all of the unique and diverse communities that we have in our region. And so this is how we kind of describe what we do as an agency. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Ray.
Thanks, Ray. So this framework that Ray's just stepped you through has really served to help us as a team to align the myriad of mandates that we have. Many of you who participated in the new member orientation learned from Julie Wiley of all of those mandates. We talked about the responsibilities and the programs, the services and the projects, and really connecting those with this draft vision and mission statement. So now that Ray's given you some familiarity with the sense of the why, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the what in terms of what we're working towards. So Ray, if you could just advance the slide, we wanted to talk about the initiatives. And when we talk about these initiatives, I had made reference that these are really rooted in our quest to transform. I mean, these are complex, large issues that grew directly from the organizational assessment and the vision that Ray just stepped you through. And these are really necessary to drive the change that we're talking about and to help us get on the pathway to become the world-class organization that the board set us on the path to become. And clearly the vision that Hassan has brought in as our executive director. If you could just advance the slide, Ray. And so when we talk about these initiatives, we've identified 5 core initiatives for our area of focus now, and that's advancing equity and inclusion. We have to work to enhance our organizational culture. We need to improve the digital capabilities. And we've talked a lot about our quest to become a data-driven organization. And of course, we need to pursue new funding sources. So those are summary statements. We're going to be unpacking those more over the next month. And when we bring this conversation to the full board, we're going to provide a little more context to these 5 initiatives. But if you could advance the slide, it's helpful, I think, for all of us. When we talk about alignment, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're not talking about it's a one and done thing. It's not a destination. There's really no finish line. And I think this infinity diagram helps to get at this understanding that this journey around change that we're on is a continuous process. It's really an unending journey, if you will. And that's largely because the world in which we work, both externally and internally, is just inevitably going to change. And we have to be positioned to respond to that change and maintain that alignment that we talked about at the beginning, about being able to align to meet the needs and at the same time have optimal performance. And so the strategic plan that we're sharing at a high level is really our starting point. And the success is going to be measured by you, by our constituents over time. If you could advance the slide, Ray, and I wanted to just conclude this portion on the what we're doing to draw some attention to the strategy. So we've, in terms of the what we do, we've got these initiatives which are primarily internally focused. And then these strategies really collectively represent everything we do as an agency, the core activities, the responsibilities, and these are both external and internal. If you could advance the slide, we've identified 6 core areas, and these are using data and analytics to support innovation and informed decision-making. Of course, planning for a vibrant future is a core strategy. Bringing plans and projects to life, we are responsible to build and implement a lot of important infrastructure in the region. Operating programs and services, engaging. It's a significant role that we play in terms of engaging the communities we serve, and then providing outstanding business advisory services. If you could just advance that slide, Ray. We've also identified, and we talked about this back in January, for those of you that were in that board meeting, I gave an overview of the 5 priority projects. And in this spring, we're going to talk more. We'll have the directors come over the course of the springtime to the board to give you more awareness of those 5 high priority projects. But these are key outputs of this work that SANDAG does. And so what I'd like to do now is invite our Chief Financial Officer, Andre Dujon, to talk about the budget. And we'll be able to draw some connections now between this important strategic planning work and how that's shaping our fiscal year 22 budget environment. So Andre?
Thank you, Ray. So over the last several months, the project managers, directors, and the senior leadership team have been working on the process of developing the fiscal year 22 program budget. And today I'll provide some preliminary information on the budget and the expected timeline through May of this year. And we expect to present the proposed final fiscal year 22 budget for board approval. So our annual program budget reflects the programs, projects, services, and activities that SANDAG intends to carry out in the upcoming year to support implementation of the agency's strategic plan as just described by the Rays. Staff is also finalizing the funding and is confident that a balanced budget will be achieved for the federally required draft budget document by early March. On attachment 2 on this report, we look at our funding for the current environment. If you'll recall last year when the pandemic hit, we're in the midst of presenting our fiscal year 2021 budget when we basically had to shut down our offices and work from home. We had very limited data and information as to how the pandemic would affect our budget, but we're able to produce a revised draft budget for fiscal year 2021 in which we cut our revenue forecast by approximately $200 million. Now, when the final 2021 budget was adopted in June, the board asked that we come back on a quarterly basis and amend the budget as necessary. So we came to the board in November of last year after our first quarter, and at that time we didn't have sufficient nor accurate enough data to propose any amendments. However, we are coming to the board later this month with our second quarterly report, and we'll propose amending to revise up our fiscal year 2021 budget since our local funds of TDA and transit are coming in much higher than expected. We had projected that it would be down approximately 7% for the year, but we are actually up 1% through December, which is halfway through this fiscal year. Now, this is significant as about half our budget comprises of local sources. For fiscal year 22, we expect the strength to continue as the economy reopens and confidence returns, and our economic team is expecting a growth of approximately 4%. The other half of our funding comes from federal and state sources. We all know that the federal government has had a number of stimulus packages to ensure the economy keeps functioning, and the good news is that we continue to receive all the funding appropriated in fiscal year 2021, and we expect the same levels in fiscal year 2022. Now, similar to SANDAG, the state of California has also seen revenues come in higher than projected, and so we've had no reductions in state fundings in fiscal year 21, and we expect the same levels in fiscal year 22. Now, out of all of our programs, the operations at SR 125 and I-15 have bared the brunt of this pandemic. At its lows, the traffic at SR 125 and its associated revenues were down 50%. And although we are back up to 80% levels, we will not achieve the fiscal year 21 revenue projections and will revise the budget accordingly. However, we expect that in fiscal year 22, as we continue to recover from COVID, we'll see improved traffic and revenues. So we'll return to this committee at your March 12th meeting with the draft fiscal year 22 program budget, which will include the overall work program or the OWP, the capital, the operations, the administrative, the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor, the Business Information and Technology Service, and board budgets. We'll also give you an update of the status of the Section 115 trust pension funding and a review of our contingency funds for each one of the programs. We'll seek authorization to distribute the document to funding agencies for their review and recommend acceptance of the draft by the board at the March 26th meeting. At that board meeting, we'll provide highlights for each of the program budget areas and how each of those programs enables us to achieve the strategic plans. Staff will return again in May to the Executive Committee with a proposed final fiscal year 22 budget, seeking your recommendation to the board at the May 28th meeting. So that concludes my brief budget kickoff report, and I'll turn it back to Ray to conclude.
Thanks, Andre, appreciate it. So members of the Executive Committee, we wanted to just share with you our journey, the journey that many of you have been a part of, and this work that's been underway to support the development of our fiscal year 22 budget. We talked a bit about the ingredients that we use in terms of the organizational assessment, the involvement that members of the board were vitally involved in this whole work and continue to work with our stakeholders and our staff. We've got the draft mission and the vision statements, and we laid out the framework that we're using to apply the vision into a way for us to implement the change that we talked about and highlighted those 5 initiatives and our strategies for how we achieve the mission. So in terms of next steps, we propose to bring this conversation, including the draft mission and the vision statements, to the board in March. And that will be timed when we bring the fiscal year 22 program budget for your review and approval, and then ultimately draft release. So that concludes this morning's brief conversation, and we welcome your feedback. So Chair, thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was very interesting to hear, and I'm glad that you've put so much evident thought into it. Let me see if there are any hands raised from members. I don't see any, so let's ask if we have public comments.
No, Chair, I don't see any hands from the public.
Okay, well then that's a generalized approval. So let's move on to our final item today. That's the proposed 2021 legislative program. Victoria?
Good morning. So we are very excited today to bring forth to you the SANDAG proposed 2021 legislative program to the Executive Committee today for recommendation to the board. With me is our team, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And they've been working hard to meet with the various directors and program managers to figure out, how best the legislative program can serve the needs to support SANDAG's 5 priority projects and support a framework to advance policies and legislative initiatives to support the agency's mission, strategic goals, and long-term vision. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Robin, and she can start and introduce herself and the rest of the team, and we will take questions after the presentation. So with that.
Thanks, Victoria. Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Wapner, Manager of Government Relations at SANDAG, and we are really excited to bring you our proposed 2021 legislative program this morning. So if you remember, at the end of last year, we did ask our advocates from Sacramento and DC to join us to give you kind of the legislative wrap up on everything that had happened. As you know, a lot has changed, obviously, but we want you to be clear that we have adapted and pivoted and are using this new virtual landscape to our benefit, really. Obviously, nothing replaces the real-time interaction, but we've actually found that we've had improved access to a lot of the folks that we need to know and work with both in Sacramento, DC, and Mexico over the last year. In fact, in July, we started hosting regular webinars with our legislative staff partners at the state and federal level, and that's really helped to improve the information sharing between all of our offices so that we can leverage our efforts as we're all working at the different levels of government. We also started focusing on participating in more virtual conferences and meetings. Hassan talked earlier about our presentations to NARC just this week. That's the National Association of Regional Councils. We also, as you know, were part of the Secretary Kim's low-SAN working group all through last year, and are also holding high-level virtual meetings with our partners in Mexico regularly to talk about Otay Mesa East. In November and December, we had our Sacramento Roadshow. So we virtually met with all of our electeds in Sacramento after the elections and all of the heads of the state agencies that we work with on a regular basis. And in fact, next week, Lori is partnering up with Congressman Peters to have a virtual delegation briefing with our entire federal delegation. So what are we talking about in all of these meetings? That's really what the legislative program comes into. And what we started doing last year is we created that cover sheet. You'll see it's on page 59 of your agenda packets, and it talks about the focus areas. And so this really helps kind of bring everything together and let you know where we're focusing our efforts throughout the year. So we're going to walk you through that briefly this morning so you can understand kind of how we do the work that we do. I will just let you know the only substantive change from last year is that we are proposing that we add a new goal to our legislative program that's focused on equity and inclusion. So Hector's going to start us off to let you know about that goal. He's actually participating in the agency's DEI Council, and he'll let you know all about that. Over to you, Hector.
Morning. Okay, you can see me. So I'm Hector Vanegas, as Robin mentioned. I'm the Borders Program Manager for the agency, and I also serve on the agency's newly created DEI Council, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. As a public agency, SANDAG has commitments and responsibilities related to social equity. The objective is to advance equity through the many programs, projects, and services the agency leads, supports, and administers throughout the region. And this new route started already with the development of the core values and proposing a social equity statement that was already presented and discussed at the board. Later today, a refined statement was included for discussion and adoption in the board agenda. The road might not be easy, but we are convinced that our vision for the future should reach to all in our region. So like Robin said, we are proposing to add Goal 11 to the 2021 legislative program, which will support efforts to pursue funding and enact policies, programs, legislations, and other initiatives that advance equity and inclusion, including eliminating the digital divide. The proposed 2021 legislative program also focuses on our borders, interregional, binational, and tribal collaboration. In terms of the latter, it is important that our region's 18 federally recognized tribal governments with jurisdictions over 19 reservations have a voice in planning for the transportation needs of today and tomorrow. In terms of our international relations with Mexico, at the end of the last administration and in the middle of the pandemic, the new free trade agreement for North America, the USMCA agreement, was signed and went into effect. And what does it mean for us? Just remember, when NAFTA was signed, Mexico was perhaps the US third or even the fourth largest trading partner. And last year, Mexico was the US largest trading partner for the US and for California, of course. And yes, Mexico is a large market with millions of people over that. But more than that, it's a strategic ally for global competitiveness. And we are just in the middle of what comes to happen in the future years. Speaking of, in the next year or so, we will continue to work with our Mexican partners on the development of the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project, which will be an asset for both nations. And I just want to remind you that this is a political year in Mexico. Midterms elections will be held on June 6th, renovating the Federal Congress or Diputados. And just here south of the border, all branches of government will be elected. A new governor, local Congress, and all 5 municipalities. So this promised to be an important year. And because of this, the Borders Committee is planning important meetings. Later this month, your Borders Committee is holding its annual joint meeting with COBRO, the Committee on Binational Regional Opportunities, and with Mexican partners. The agenda will include a report on the study that quantifies economic and air quality impacts of border wait times of the whole border of California with Baja California, and a joint report with Mexican authorities to provide updates on the development of the Otay Mesa East, Mesa de Otay 2 port of entry. Now I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Lori Grover, who will share with you a perspective from the federal level. Thank you.
Thanks, Hector. For those that of you that I haven't met, my name is Lori Grover, and I primarily serve as SANDAG's federal liaison. In terms of our funding, innovative financing, pilots, and partnerships focus area of our legislative program, Hector touched upon one of our cornerstone projects, the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. This project in particular is a prime example of SANDAG's ability and capacity to partner on major capital projects while bringing in traditional discretionary grant awards with the potential to leverage innovative financing strategies moving forward. This next year, as we prepare for a potential stimulus or infrastructure package as part of the Biden administration's Build Back Better program, we will be asking for additional support for our nationally and regionally significant projects like Otay Mesa East, like LoSAN and Central Mobility Hub. And we will also be looking for ways to pilot new projects like inductive charging and other big data initiatives that Robin will touch upon later. Moving to the project delivery and resiliency focus area, SANDAG will continue to look for opportunities at both the state and federal levels to exercise innovative project delivery methods that would not only bring good paying jobs to the region sooner, but also provide improved transportation access. With the climate crisis also at the center of the Biden administration's agenda, this is also a great opportunity to build resiliency into our capital projects by means of incorporating hazard mitigation planning into the project development process itself, as opposed to reacting to an emergency on the back end. This is something we are addressing at the statewide level that Robin will address next. So over to Robin.
Thanks, Lori. So talking about resiliency, there's a lot going on in DC as well as in Sacramento. There's a handful of bills that have been introduced already that have to do with resiliency, sea level rise, climate collaboratives, and a few of those are actually from our own delegation. So we are working closely with all of those authors to, one, let them know what a resource SANDAG can be in those conversations, and two, let them know, what we think is the best way for resiliency to move forward, especially as a part of transportation infrastructure in the future. Part of this work has been really exciting because we are partnering with our big four MPOs. So that includes SACOG from Sacramento, SCAG from the LA region, and MTC from San Francisco. So all of us together have started holding meetings, virtual meetings in Sacramento to have joint conversations about how we can work together to really advance resiliency throughout the state. Same approach we're taking on the digital divide as well. Hector talked about this as a component of our equity goals, but it really touches so many aspects of what's going on throughout the state that we found a lot of partners in this area, like the League of California Cities, CSAC, the Association of Counties, and others. So we'll continue working with all of our partners to advance addressing the digital divide as well. A couple of other hot topics this year that you'll see reflected in the focus areas are housing, affordable housing, and clean energy. All of these, of course, in line with the strategic initiatives and the priority projects that the Rays were just talking to you about as part of our FY22 budget. So on housing, we're probably going to hear a lot about how can we build on the REAP program from last year. This was a regional early action planning program that provides funds through the regions, through agencies like SANDAG, to help advance implementation of our RENA requirements. So that was part of the budget last year. We're in talks with the governor's office this year to see how we can continue to build on that model and hopefully get more funding for all of you to implement RENA. We're also, as Hassan mentioned, working closely with our partners on the Strategic Growth Council to make sure that we are positioned to succeed under the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. And this year, the California Housing and Community Development Department is going to be kicking off the review of the RENA process. So you can be sure that we're keeping a very close eye on that. We'll be participating in those discussions and keeping you all plugged in so we can help inform any proposals that come out of that exercise. On clean energy, you all know about the governor's executive orders from last year. We have the climate action program for transportation infrastructure that CalSTA is overseeing. So we're very much a part of those conversations. At the federal level, we're watching the Alternative Fuels Corridors program. We're very pleased to see that now there is funding tied to that program. So we've worked hard with Caltrans to make sure all of our corridors are designated. Now that makes us able to compete for funds to actually get our charging infrastructure along our major corridors throughout the San Diego region. And then of course, SB 375 is a goodie that keeps on coming back. But I wanted to highlight that because we have new chairs of our Senate Transportation Committee and Assembly Transportation Committee in Sacramento, and we know that they are ready to move forward as strongly as they can to help advance the intersection between how we support the environment and transportation and our mobility goals all together. So I think that this year you're definitely going to start to see those conversations ramping up. And then our final, last but certainly not least focus area for this year is technology and data. So you've been hearing, I think, throughout our presentation today, Sandag truly is revolutionizing how we do long-term planning. So part of the Sacramento Roadshow that we conducted in December was meeting with each of the state agencies to tell them how we are using data to truly do things differently. And I have to tell you, they all were really impressed by the work that we're doing and want to know how they can work with us to do that on a statewide level, and then at NARC as well on a national level. So we're going to continue kind of pushing the dial on that and seeing how we can attract some funding and partnership to support this new way of transportation planning, not only for our region, but across the country. And the technology front, again, with our new leadership in Sacramento on transportation, the face of transportation continues to evolve, and technology is going to continue to play a growing role in that, very much in line with NextOS, one of our 5 big moves for the regional plan. So that's a very high level summary of all of our focus areas and what we're planning to work on this year. We would love any feedback, always looking for opportunities to partner. Like I said, there's tons of coalitions that we know you all are a part of, we are a part of, we want to work together. And so today we're really looking for a recommendation from the executive committee for the board to approve the proposed 2021 legislative program. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for all that. Do we have any public comments, Francesca?
No, Chair, I don't see any hands from the public.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to member comments. Council or Mayor Gloria.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for the presentation. And forgive me for not speaking on the previous side. I was trying to be expeditious, but to the two Rays, that was a very good presentation. This is also a really strong presentation. And, you know, after having a 4-year hiatus, I can very much sense and feel the change in the organization, changes that I think are very representative of the environment we're working in, the priorities that we have to deal with, and frankly, the relationships that we need to leverage in order to get the resources we need for San Diego and our region. Question probably for Lori. I've seen drafts of the relief legislation that Congress is currently considering. I haven't seen or heard much about a potential infrastructure package from the Biden administration. Do you have more details on that? It seems like this package would authorize staff to do what they need to do to advocate on behalf of Sandag, but I'm wondering if you have any more specifics about what we can potentially anticipate from that package.
I think at this point, we're just going to be ready for whatever comes our way, if it is stimulus or if it's an infrastructure package. We also know that the reauthorization bill is taking place towards the end of the year in September. So we're just readying ourselves for all of those opportunities. But our information is probably the same, I would guess.
Yeah, you guys have great contacts. Oh, I'm sorry.
Gloria, just so we just having discussion with our national leadership. We spoke to Congressman Levin, who gave us, I think, an accurate picture of what might happen. There might be probably two places where they're going to be stimulus. And the question was, are we ready? And the focus will be on shovel ready, obviously, because of the job creation. But we urge the congressman to also look at the major infrastructure projects that we have, which is actually one of the biggest in the country. We have 3 of them here: Otay 2, the Los Angeles Corridor, and the Navwar project. Hoping that these projects makes it into, even though they are still in the environmental and design stage. So we're working very closely with Washington to make sure we're ready. But I also want to advise our members to be ready and to let us know if they have shovel ready, to have it ready. Once we have a stimulus, we can send it over.
Well, I think one of the strengths. Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
In addition to that, I think the transit agencies are probably slated to also receive another lump funding to be able to supplement operations and ongoing services. And then I'm sure you guys have seen from the League of Cities that there's also a push right now to ensure that cities, municipalities, local governments, and potentially MPOs that would also be able to get money to be able to distribute regionally to support infrastructure and COVID-19 responses.
In the COVID bill right now, we expect our region to get somewhere around $200 million for our transit operation. And that's a good news, which matches what we got before.
I just reflect upon the fact I think one of the strengths of Sandag has been to leverage other people's money really effectively, and seeing these vehicles proceeding gives me hope that we can continue that winning streak and perhaps even overperform over those past strong performances. Last thing I would just offer for the committee, Robin's characterization is correct. The two new chairs of the State's Transportation Committee, I think, bode well for the 5 big moves in the regional plan. Obviously not adopted yet, a lot of work still left to be done, but I think that their points of view on mobility and on transportation infrastructure align well with what is, I think, the general vision of the 5 big moves. So it gives me hope that we will be in strong alignment with the state and therefore hopefully successful in drawing down funds to actually implement it. Chair, thank you. I'm happy to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation on this item.
Okay, thank you. And we have Supervisor Lawson Remer with her hand up too.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I just I wanted to take this opportunity to build on Mayor Gloria's comments. I have also been having conversations with our congressional delegation, and I think it's pretty clear that it would be very helpful as part of our legislative program, and sort of connecting back to our budget and strategic planning framework. If we can identify and have ready, a couple of those big shovel-ready projects. I know for my own advocacy on behalf of our region, it would be quite helpful to be able to be in conversations and be pointing in a granular way to the projects that we think would be good candidates for that federal stimulus Rebuild America Biden funding. So I think sooner rather than later, being able to point to specific projects would be helpful.
I think maybe we'll just let staff answer this quickly, but my understanding is that we do have those. I know at the City of Encinitas, we submitted 4 projects to SANDAG to be part of the list. So maybe you could communicate directly with the supervisor so she's armed with the information she needs to do advocacy, because that's really important. I agree that that's data that she needs to have.
Absolutely. And as we get more details on the types of projects that they're willing to entertain, because we're also hearing that potentially there might be some dollars extra money put into existing pipelines for planning. So, we definitely will work with you to ensure that all of your projects that you're seeking funding for in the next year are represented on our list. And we're happy to work with you to continue to advocate for infrastructure projects in your district and throughout the region.
Throughout the region, not only our district. Regional planning.
Just to elaborate on Victoria's point, so there is a likelihood that we get money for the mid-coast, and so the transnet money that we're putting in mid-coast will be freed up to do other things. So we're thinking of all possibilities to bring in new monies to the region.
Okay, great. Was that a second, Supervisor?
That was a second.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and vote, Francesca.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Mayor Gloria.
Aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Lawson Remer.
Aye.
Thank you. For East County, Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Chair Blakespear.
Aye.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor Voss. I believe North County Inland is absent. For South County, Mayor Salas.
Aye. Hello, I'm actually here, Rebecca Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Jones. Would you state your vote for the record?
Yes, it would be aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that does pass unanimously.
Okay, thank you. I do not see any more public comments. So this will conclude our meeting. Our next executive meeting is on March 12th, and we will now just jump over to the board meeting right now. So thank you very much. We are adjourned.